Hello and welcome. Today I'll be discussing CADRE, the Coordinate Access for Data, Researchers, and Environments project. Within this video, I'll talk about how to use and navigate the application. My name is Mate Mitref. I'm one of the software engineers at the Australian Data Archive and one of the developers on the CADRE project. I'm pleased to present the work which our team has completed and to provide a helpful start to using our application. Before I begin with the guide of Cadre's user interface, I would first like to preface that this guide is for Cadre version 1.0.3, the first public release of Cadre. As our team continues with the development of Cadre, future releases may see changes to the user interface and functionality that could mean that sections of this video could be obsolete if you're referring to a newer version of the application. If this is the case, please be sure to refer to our documentation website, that is documentation.cadre.ada.edu.au, where we update our guides to the current version. Once our Cadre service goes live, you will be able to log into it by using the URL cadre.ada.edu.au. Once you do so, you'll be navigated to this page here, our landing page. On this landing page, we give a couple of points of like background information about Cadre, as well as our common FAQs. When you go to this page, if you want to choose to log into Cadre, you'll do so by pressing the login button on the top right-hand corner here. After you do so, you'll be navigated to our login service. When you choose to log into Cadre, you're consenting to release certain information about yourself, this being your name, your email address, as well as your username and affiliation from your identity provider, your IDP. You can choose your identity provider using this drop-down box here, and you're able to search as well. I'll just choose ANU for this example. And once you click the log on button, you'll then be navigated to your IDP's login service. Once you complete it, you'll then be taken straight into Cadre's dashboard. However, whether or not your institution's on that list can differ, or perhaps you're from the Australian government and you're looking to access data anyway. So for that reason, your institution won't appear on that drop-down list before. So if it doesn't, what you can do is you can't find your login server, you can click this link here and you'll be taken to create a new Cadre guest account. You'll need to provide like information about yourself. You give them a name, your family name, as well as your email. And once you do so, and generate your password as well after that, once you do so, you'd then be able to log into Cadre through that method instead. After logging into Cadre, you'll be then redirected to this page here, the My Dashboard page. On this page, you get a big overview of all the different requests that you've completed, requests for your review if you're an approver, as well as any approved requests and projects and courses and action items and recently added resources. So there's a lot going on this page, but it is dynamic. So by default, this is what it looks like for when someone will land on the page if they are a returning user. But I'll quickly cut and show you what it looks like for a uh, non-returning user, a new user. This is what it looks like for a new user. You can see it's very different. There's much less information because we can see that for a returning user, they already know what the application is about. They just want to jump right into it. They just want to see their applications and they want to check up on them. Well, for a new user, the experience is much different. You are given a message telling you that you have no requests and that you should probably go and navigate to search for a resource for you to apply to, as well as action items such as linking your ORCID ID. So your ORCID is very important for making sure that you're a safe person as part of the five safes. So we're pushing for the user to link their ORCID, as well as the recently added resources being shown here. From here, I can continue to show you all the different uh, pages present on the nav bar. So the nav bar on the side here. So I'll continue to search resources now. So this page will have all the resources which we can apply for within Cadre. The way it works is in a cart system. So you might be familiar with e-commerce sites where you might add something to a cart and then check it out later. So that's the way that CADRE works as well. So on the top right-hand corner, this is our cart. It currently says no resources chosen because we haven't selected any resources to create an application for. But if I open it right now, it just tells us, yes, it is empty. And to click on the resource cards to add them to the cart. So we can add resources to the cart by clicking them. And once we do so, we'll then add it to the cart here, as you can see, ANU poll 55. Uh, the way it works is you can also do bulk requests. So this is an individual data set that once I get approved for, I can get given access to the data. But for instance, if I want to apply for all these Australian surveys, Australian social attitude surveys, if I select them all and they all have the same approver, I can actually do a bulk request for all of these data sets at once, which is pretty useful for those requesting very similar data sets. I'll now progress, basically checking out the data set, making an application for it by pressing this blue button here to continue it. If I want to uh, create a bulk one, I'll just have to press this button instead. But for simplicity's sake, while I walk through this demonstration, I'll just do this individual one first. Now that I've clicked the arrow, it's actually created a DSR for me, the data sharing request. This page is split into three sections, I'll say. This section here with all the expanders, this section on the right with the general information about the data sharing request, and further down the page, the form information. I'll start with the overview information here. So we have the unique ID of our request, its state, a timeline of events, which as I continue to fill out the form, we can see update. We have action buttons here. So I can choose to delete the DSR. I can save it, and I can't actually submit it right now because I haven't accepted the terms and conditions. Now moving over to these expanders. These expanders are separated into different kind of categories. So we have the requested resources. It says one resource because I only chose one. If we did that bulk request before, it would show three. So as you can see here, I have the name of the resource that I want to make the application for. Its unique ID, uh, this DOI, as well as certain information about whether or not it's currently available, as well as whether or not a project is required to be linked. I'll go into projects when I get to the projects expander. Applicant information. So this applicant information tab just tells me information about those who will be given access to the data. So this account is called Smith, and if I want to add more people, I can do so by clicking this invite collaborator button, where I'll just need to provide the email of the people that I want to add. I can always add more people as well, and I'll show that in a sec, but I kind of want to also just show that we can see the people whose terms and conditions have been accepted, and we can also see whether or not the person has done their training. Now, the training is useful for the approvers because they can then see whether or not this person has the skills necessary to handle the data, and it kind of ties back to the five safe person. So I'll now actually invite a collaborator. I'll invite myself. My email. And once I click invite collaborator, you'll say successfully invited all new collaborators. And here I can see I'm a pending collaborator here. Linked projects. So projects are part of the five safe. It basically outlines what my goal is to do with the data. And it's very useful for the approvers, and it's part of the Safe Projects 5 Safe to outline that, yeah, I have the correct intentions to use this data. You can create a project within this page here when you click the projects, or you can go into the My Projects tab. I'll do so after I finish explaining all the DSR information here. Terms and conditions. So these are the terms and conditions that someone has to accept when they are using the data. So for ANU Poll 55, it has these terms and conditions. So you can click confirm after you've read it and accept to show that you've accepted those terms and conditions. As you can see, the submit button has now been enabled, but uh, we still need to fill out the form to send it. Communication. So when there is communication between applicants, for instance, you can create a comment explaining to your collaborators uh, what you want from them, or when an approver uh, might return an application back, they can provide a comment explaining why you won't approve for the data. Once you click new comment here, it'll pop up allowing you to add a comment here and then any attachments that you want as well. Now, the final section is this request form section. So we can provide our name, our email address, our institution, our primary intended use for the data, all this information that the improver wants. I'll now jump into projects because I want to link a project to this request. So you can look at all your projects on the My Projects tab. Currently, I have no projects because this is a new account, but once we create a new project, it will appear here. So I can create a new project by pressing this new project button here. This is where I'm going to have to fill out information about my project so that when a data custodian refers to my application, they can see what I intend to use the data for, what research I want to do with it. So here I have to provide like it is required for me to provide the title of the project, its end date, and also who the owner is of the project. By that default, it's yourself. So I can provide a title. So my title is going to be Investigations of COVID-19 Social Impact. I can provide a start date. So I can also backdate this. So for instance, I don't want to select it as today. I can always put it sometime in the past and an end date. So this is required by default. So I have to choose when the project is going to end. I'm going to say January 29th. So the project description, if you ever want further information about what each of the form items is requiring you, you can also hover over this question mark. And here it says, please provide a brief abstract outlining your project and how you may require the CADRE data. Depending on the data custodian, they might want more information. Some require less, just depending on the risk of the data. So this section here can be used to describe to whatever length the data custodian needs about what you intend to do with the research. Project collaborators. So you can provide users to nominate as collaborators, but first you need to invite them. So to invite a user, you will need to click this invite collaborator / owner via email. Here it will say the collaborator's name. So I can invite myself. And I can select what role I want them to have. A collaborator by default um, won't be able to edit a application, project, sorry, while an owner will. So I'll leave myself my other account as a collaborator, and I can also add more if I wish, but I will not. The RAID identifier. So the research activity identifier service is a unique and persistent identifier for all research projects. So if you do have one, you can add it here optionally. Rate organizations. Here you can add organizations that are affiliated with your project. So, for instance, a data custodian can then see, um, oh, I have the Australian National University as an organization involved with this project, and they can then use that to assure that the background of the and authenticity of this project. So here I can look up ANU, Australian National University, and I can choose their role within the project. So I can say lead research organization. When they started, I'll send that as the same date as the project start date and the role end date. So we can add as many organizations as we want as well. For instance, you might have one lead organization, you might have a partner organization or a funder. Basically, adding as much information about your research will help and assist the data custodian in making their decision. I can also link the app, like the DSRs through the project directly on this page here. So, for instance, we can see uh, 108. So that was the DSR I was showing before. I can link that straight away, and I can click submit. So now my project has been created with all the information which I had provided before, and we can see that it is now linked to my DSR that we were creating before. I can navigate straight to the DSR here, but I kind of want to show you guys the different tabs here. The My Projects tab, which was previously unpopulated, now is populated. It tells us information about the unique ID of the project, the name of the project, the application that have been linked to this project, as well as the end date, who owns it, general stuff like that. If I ever want to go back and edit it, I can click this button and it'll open and edit the page that we were just navigated to, and you can click this edit button to update the information and save it as well. If we go to the My DSRs page, we can see all of these DSRs that have been created. And we can see that this one has one project linked to it now. That was the one that we were just creating before. When I click open, I can click open this project tab. Before it was empty. Now you can see the one project linked and all this information here for the data custodian to then review. I'll now fill out this form. So I've quickly filled out all the information about the request here. And now when I click submit, it'll then have the DSR submitted. And we can see once it's submitted, I can't delete the DSR. This is part of our archival process. So you can't, once something's submitted, you can't actually delete it. And if we open the DSR here, I can't actually edit the information. And we can see that I have to wait until approval is given. We can see here that all of the processes and the steps within the DSR. Now what we can do is we can flip over to a reviewer, someone who's going to actually assess the application. So what I've done is I've actually swapped over to a approver account, and now I can actually assess that application which we were looking at, which we just submitted just before. By default, those approving will see all the data sharing requests for their review on their dashboard, and they're organized from uh, oldest to newest. So if we flick all the way to the front, we can see the one submitted from that account before. So we can open it up and we can start looking through the information that we just submitted. Now, right off the bat, it seems a little, if I was the approver, I can see that this person has not completed their training, and that can impact my decision making when it comes to whether or not I make a approval decision or not. So something I can actually do here is I can use the decision buttons here to reject the application. So I don't want the person to continue with this request. If they want to make um, a a new application, they'll have to recreate one instead of continuing with this one. I can approve it so they can get access to the data. I can close the application so I can end it without reaching a decision. I can add a hidden comment. Now, if I have to like communicate to someone else uh, internally without the applicant seeing, I can do so, and I can return it, which is probably what I'll do for this application here. I can also solicit assistance from someone. I can request decision. I can also request review, and I'll return it back to the original account. So, for instance, here I can say that um, complete sensitivity sensitivity training. And once I submit that, the user has successfully um, received that request. So now if we jump back into the other account, so now I'm back in the other account and I can see that it's actually being returned. So uh, I can see it on the timeline here that it was returned and that a comment was given. If I look at the comment, it says complete sensitivity training, like we said before. With this given example, we can see the interaction process between an approver and a user and how someone can work forward to getting something approved. Once it does get approved, it will then appear in our DSAs. What I'll do is I'll just quickly reapprove this one. So I've gone through and approved this application before, and now we can see that its status is approved. And when we view our My DSAs, it shows up here, and I can download the DSA as a PDF to show to an individual that uh, I have been given access to this data. Now, the data itself isn't saved within Cadre, but certain IT integrations can allow it so that as soon as a data set has been approved, uh, integration between Cadre and external service can make sure that the user is given the data on that external service. So that gave a bit of insight into the approval process as part of the user interaction between the data custodians and how it was all approved. But now what I would like to do is I'd like to move on to the documentation of Cadre. So we have a separate website, as I was describing initially, uh, called documentation.cadre.ada.edu.au. And here we've got a whole bunch of information about the different releases that we've done for Cadre, uh, guided walkthroughs to understand how to use Cadre, and also like the about information with some posts describing the process that we've taken when developing Cadre. If we look at the release, we can see the different changes that have been made between each patches. We can see the different guides. So if we view all the guides, we can see a guide for an applicant, how to make your first project, how to submit your first application. We can see approval guides, how you can find requests and go through pending decision and make a final decision, and also developer guides. So if you're developing new features or integrating Kaja with existing software, all this information is found within our guide section here. And they're all detailed. So there's screenshots explaining how you can progress, how to create a project, for instance, in this case, and they're all stepped out like this. Thank you for watching this demonstration about Cadre. We were thrilled to present the work that we've done over the course of these years, and we are excited to move towards the full first release of Cadre. Thank you.